Okay, we're running.
Okay, so I'm Anita. I work here at the museum, and today we're going to cover making sauerkraut and a little bit of history on fermented foods. So this is a head of cabbage. So the first thing I do is I'm going to make sauerkraut, just cut it in half and then quarter it. Cut out the hard core. You could use that too if you wanted to chop it up, but I don't. It's just a little bit tougher.
Let's find out how German she really is.
I really am doing it.
Are you cutting that with a serrated knife?
No, it's just a basic chef's knife.
Yeah, okay.
And if you have one of the old-fashioned cabbage graters that they used to use back in the day, you can use those. I don't have one of those, but so I just slice it, shred it as thinly as you can. Thinner the better because it'll help it break down the cabbage a little bit faster. So fermented foods have been around for probably since 11,000 BC. In the Mesopotamia area, probably discovered by accident, like a lot of the food culture things in history were. Probably somebody chopped a bunch of vegetables and left them sit in a bowl overnight and it fermented. The benefits of fermentation is it basically breaks down, we allow bacteria to break down the chemical structure and the fiber of whatever food it is, which makes it easier to digest. And it also builds the probiotics up, which is really good for digestion and your immunity. It helps with inflammation, all sorts of different things. Cabbage was first made into sauerkraut in China. Everybody thinks it's Japan, Germany or Russia. Actually, the Chinese made sauerkraut first, around 3,000 years ago.
I didn't know that.
Kimchi is Korean. Kimchi is Korean. And they actually do turnips and radishes and different things besides cabbage. Along with the cabbage, carrots, those sorts of things. So just about every culture has some sort of fermented food. What's that, Sherry?
You're fast at that.
Oh.
It takes me a long time.
To chop the cabbage?
Yeah.
You don't want to get your fingers in there.
Oh.
That would hurt.
Be red cabbage then.
Huh?
Red cabbage then.
You could use red cabbage if you wanted to. Oh, yeah, it would be red cabbage. You could, if you wanted to, use real red cabbage.
Add a little iron to it.
A little protein. So once you get your cabbage shredded, I just use a big bowl. Now, the Germans and the Russians, they, of course, did a lot of cabbage, big, huge, 5 and 10 gallon
Clay
crocks of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this in a quart jar because I'm not going to use 5 gallons of cabbage just for me. So I'll put it in a bowl. Add my salt. About that much. And all you want to do is just work it in so the cabbage is coated everywhere. Well mixed. While I'm doing this, I kind of scrunch and squeeze the cabbage a little bit to help get the moisture flowing. Get the water pulling, the salt to pull the moisture out of the cabbage. That's part of what starts the fermentation process. Squeeze it up really good. And you wouldn't believe it, but this whole head of cabbage is going to go in that jar.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that.
It's all going to fit. Because this is actually 2 heads of cabbage.
Oh,
I started them in 2 different jars, and then when they were done fermenting, I stuffed it into one. So I just start with a little bit. It's messy. You're going to have cabbage everywhere.
How much salt would you say you put in there?
About 2 or 3 tablespoons.
Okay.
Not a whole lot of that.
Kind of in the middle of the palm.
In the palm of your hand, yeah. And there again, if your head of cabbage is a little bit bigger, you want to use a little more, and if it's a little smaller, you want to use a little less.
If you're German, you're gonna use 10 times that amount.
You like a lot of salt. The Germans like caraway seed. I'm not a huge fan of caraway.
I don't like caraway in in that.
They-
I like it in some things.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, so I don't use caraway. But they usually eat caraway with the cabbage. You just keep stuffing it down and packing it in there.
Hope your table lasts.
What's that?
Hope your table lasts.
Holds up. I do this on my kitchen counter at home, so I can actually put a little pressure on that. Just about every culture had some sort of fermented foods, and there again it goes clear back to about the beginning of time. It was a good way to preserve foods. They didn't have refrigeration back in those days. So they put a big old crock of cucumbers or big old crock of sauerkraut or other vegetables and salt it and just let it ferment and sit, and it would preserve the food, and it was good for them. People started experimenting with different things.
So Anita, if you have a container that's larger than the amount of cabbage you're putting in there, is it okay to have some space, or do
Yeah.
you want it? Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once we get to it, I'm hoping this will all fit in this jar. I'm kind of running out of room. I might have told a lie. I had smaller heads of cabbage when I did that at home. I think I'm going to stop there. So once you get it about like that and smash down as far as you can. What's that?
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty tight.
pretty tight.
You want to make sure there's no air spaces in there. A little bit more.
What happens if there's air spaces in there?
This is actually going to form liquid, and as the liquid forms, as the salt pulls the moisture out of the cabbage, it's going to form liquid, and it'll push the air out. It'll just bubble up
Oh,
once it starts fermenting.
you can't make yourself sick if you do that wrong, can you?
Yeah. That'll be the next step. So once I have my jar completely packed, you want to take a piece of saran wrap and push it down. Make sure that the saran wrap seals all the cabbage. Make a good tight seal. And I use one of these plastic jar lids. And I'm using a largemouth jar. Okay, that one of these regular sized lids will just fit right down in there and make a
Cork.
cork. Yeah, you want to be able to have a good tight seal down in here so that no air.
Do you have to use plastic?
Yeah, you should.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
Metal?
Yeah, no metal, because
No
the
metal.
metal will
No,
corrode.
no.
So I use saran wrap and then a plastic lid. And these you can find. You could probably just cut a piece of plastic like out of a margarine lid, something to pack this down and form a good tight seal. And then I use a weight, and that's just a 12-ounce jar full of water, and then just push it down like that. And usually when I'm doing this at home, I'll push it down like every day, just to make sure it's packing down, and you'll pretty soon see the water start to form, and it'll start to bubble and ferment. You want to make sure there's a good tight seal here, and because if you don't, the cabbage on top will spoil and it'll turn black, and that's the stuff that will make you sick.
So is it just left on the counter? Okay.
3 to 4 weeks, and then once it's done fermenting, you can just seal it and put it in a jar and then put it in your refrigerator, and that's what I have here. So this is about 6 weeks old.
And then do you have to keep them in your fridge?
Yeah, refrigerate it, and don't ever can it. If you can it will destroy the probiotics. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this, is so we have the good probiotic.
How long can you keep it in the fridge?
It'll keep 6 months.
6 months. So no vinegars put in there?
No?
I'm flabbergasted there was no vinegar.
Huh?
I'm flabbergasted
Yeah,
there's no
no
vinegar.
vinegar.
That's
No,
a modern way of
Quick way
making
of making it?
sauerkraut.
Yeah, and a lot of your commercial sauerkrauts are not actually fermented.
No, they're horrible.
Yeah, they put vinegar and salt in it, and that's what cures it, instead of this process. And then the other thing that they do is they can it, and as soon as they heat it, it destroys the probiotics in it, so it does you no good.
See, we just did it layer of sauerkraut, layer of salt, layer of sauerkraut, layer of salt, and then
Yeah.
you mush it down.
Yeah.
And we did, my parents would do the big 5
Probably
gallon.
the big 5-gallon crock.
Yeah, crock,
Yeah.
and you
And-
cork it,
Yeah,
and then you put it in the ground for a while.
and keep it cool, you know,
Yeah.
because they had no refrigeration, so they put it in a cool cellar in the wintertime to keep it
Well, we actually had a hole, and then the hole, they'd bury it in
in the hole.
the hole.
To keep it cool.
Keep it cool, and
So.
then after 2-3 weeks, you'd pull it up and put it in the cellar, and
Uh-huh.
then you'd start making a new one.
Yeah, so and that's how it was done. You know, this is a small, because I'm not going to use a whole 5-gallon tub of it by myself. But if you're a big family and you were going to
Yeah.
use 5 gallons, and they would do it at the end of the summer or early fall when they harvested
That
their
was
cabbage,
usually it. Time.
and that's how they preserved their cabbage.
So when you had that crop and you started using out of it, how did you keep it resealed? Is it level?
By the time you were opening that crock of stuff, it was going to get used within 2 months, and you're perfectly okay.
Yeah,
We'd go through
Put
3 of
something on
those.
top to-
No,
Keep
you
the
put
air
the
off.
cork back on.
yeah.
but,
As long as you keep it sealed so the air can't get to it,
yeah,
it'll keep
but
for a long
for a
time.
long time. But I mean, we'd go through, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 of those crocks a year
For your family,
for the family. You know, it wasn't just our family. It was, we lived close to family.
yeah. So you all
So-
shared out of the same
Crop
crock.
was-
Everybody, and so a crock. I would be surprised if a crock of that stuff lasted us more than a month and a half,
Yeah.
maybe 2 months.
Used a lot of sauerkraut, but cabbage
Yeah.
is one of the best
They were
things for it
German.
because it's
Yeah.
really high in vitamin C. Yeah, and that's the other pickles. They would use those on the ships, and when they come across the ocean, Columbus actually brought them to America, and they'd have a big wooden barrel full of pickles.
Yeah.
And this is just salt and water and some mustard seed and garlic, and that's how they preserve their pickles. And the sailors would eat them, and it would prevent scurvy on their trips, which is vitamin C.
So will sauerkraut.
Because it's huge in vitamin C.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add seasonings to the sauerkraut, like
You
the
probably could.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to use garlic or caraway seed or
you
celery
put
seed
it
or
in
something. Mhm.
while you're shredding
could mix it.
with the
Yep.
salt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mom would do the garlic sometimes, and she wouldn't even crush or slice them up. Whole
Just
cloves.
put it in there the whole cloves.
Just
Yeah,
in-
you could sure do that. That's what I did with the pickles
Oh,
here.
So what about other vegetables using that same process?
The Koreans do kimchi, and it's basically a cabbage, and they usually use like carrots and radishes and turnips and lots of different things, even some fruits like apples and things like
So
that.
you'd probably want to shred it too, right? So you can
Chop it up.
Yeah.
Chop it up real fine so the salt and the probiotics can all get mixed together, and mix it up together and do just like this.
And it works really
Yeah.
good with
Put it in
things
a
like
jar and-
cauliflower and broccoli. Do that really well.
The very same thing.
Just picturing shredded carrots in there with the cabbage.
Yeah, it'd be pretty.
It would work.
Or radishes, or like he said, broccoli and cauliflower.
Radishes, I've never thought of that. That'd be good.
Make it
So
hot. and-
next year when you have your garden,
I don't garden no
you don't
more.
garden anymore. Go to the farmer's market and get some radishes and carrots and make some kimchi. I made some pickles if you guys want to come up and sample any of this stuff. This is sourdough bread, which is another fermented project. You guys were talking about sourdough, which is fermented flour and water. That's all it is. And what happens there is it breaks down the gluten and raises the probiotic level, and it's really good for you. And when you eat sourdough bread, it doesn't mess up your blood sugar as well, like your store-bought breads and stuff do, because the flour and the protein and the gluten in it is already partially broken down, and that's one of the benefits of fermented foods.
So do you think any sauerkraut I would buy in a grocery store has probably been heated? Is there
Oh,
any
yeah.
If it's sealed in a jar, yep,
Yeah.
it's been heated.
I can't remember the name of the sauerkraut. There is a real sauerkraut you can buy. I don't see it in
Probably not
Newcastle.
locally.
And I don't remember the brand.
Yeah.
But it's this.
It's the.
So I imagine the taste is a lot different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
Oh,
as
yeah.
vinegary.
It's not
You're gonna let
vinegary.
us taste.
Oh, yeah, that's why I brought samples. Yeah.
As you start using out of that jar, and it's half full, doesn't it have half full of air also?
When I use like part of a jar, I'll put a piece of saran wrap over it and then seal it and put it in my refrigerator.
But you put it down on the sauerkraut or on the top?
Yep, down the sauerkraut.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
And if
So
you
the air
use
doesn't touch it.
it up within a couple of weeks, you're gonna be fine.
You're gonna be
Yeah.
fine. Oops.
It's about a 5-gallon
Yeah, it's cat
crock.
Yeah, just
And
open
you've
up,
got
I'll just
20
take it.
people doing it. You're always taking off the top, so what you're uncovering wasn't supposed to.
What do they consider a serving of sauerkraut? Like,
Probably like I would say like a quarter to a half a cup. You can't have any? How come? Are you allergic? Oh, okay.
Salt, not salt.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
not
all
the
it is
vinegar.
just
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah.
It's just salt. It's the same exact thing as I
Looks
did.
wonderful.
I like the cucumber.
That is so close,
Isn't that good?
so close.
So close to what? What you remember as a kid?
Wow.
Oh,
Probably
that
the
is
only reason
so
is,
close.
yeah. Probably the only reason is I refrigerated this sooner than what your family would have. And it's
And
crispy.
because they use more
more
salt,
crispy.
they use a little more salt, so it breaks down
Okay.
a little bit more.
Good.
I
Yeah,
kinda like
but it's
this.
got a crisper texture to it than the stuff you buy in the grocery store. It's
Oh, yeah.
kind of mushy, I guess. Yeah, help yourself with the bread.
You know, that's sauerkraut.
Thank you, Anita. Thanks for
welcome.
sharing.
Well, that's why I brought this. There's butter there if you guys want butter. Oh, you've got a piece.
That's sauerkraut.
The new store. This is the one-stop shop. We have a pharmacy. We have a bootlegger's liquor. The deli, the food that you can get at a lunchtime is so amazing. The coffee shop. Certain Friday mornings, there's 30 people sitting here in all these chairs. This is the hub for people to come and visit, have their coffee, have their donuts. It's amazing what this area has done. Totally amazing.
The thing I noticed about the sourdough bread is the texture is heavy and dense. It's real bread. It's not the fluffy
Oh, I
air bread. It's different, isn't it?
I love the sourdough.
You can make pancakes and biscuits and cinnamon rolls, banana
lately I've seen
bread.
them make them.
What your parents made,
Huh?
saltier than
Oh
that.
yeah, you can muffins, anything.
And soft.
Banana bread.
It was crunchy.
Yeah,
What about
I was surprised how crunchy.
the stuff you have to throw
But
away?
she said it's
They
only
say discard.
so
Oh, you
clear,
use
so
that
Yeah.
in pancakes and stuff like that.
Pancakes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the longer you let it sit, the more it'll break it down.
Why?
I don't throw it away.
You use it?
Yeah, I
for
use it.
pancakes
Yeah,
and stuff?
pancakes.
But you have to
Something.
take it out to develop your sourdough.
Yeah.
Oh,
Help yourself.
The discarding, I've been saving pig mine in a jar. It's not stuff to make.
Use it with pancakes or something like that, or biscuits or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
Long
and
fermented.
cookies.
You long
Banana
fermented.
bread.
You long fermented.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you the best flavor.
Yeah. I'll start I'll use in fact, I've got recipes for you. Start the active starter like the night before in a bowl and let it set, and then mix my dough up the next day and let it
Let it
raise.
set for like 8 hours.
thank you.
Oh, thanks, Anita.
Oh,
Thank you. Recipes.
this was this presentation.
There you go.
I tried sourdough years and years and
Recipe?
years ago.
Thank you.
I was always disappointed because it never had that.
You made the bread also.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
good.
Come to find out that
Yep,
that comes
I did.
from long
Got it.
fermenting.
Cool,
So instead of
sweetness
letting
to it
freeze
that you
for
don't
an hour,
get in
you
other
like you
bread.
do
Yeah.
regular bread.
not sweetness, it's a tangy sweetness.
It's a tangy sweet. I've had that starter going for over a year. So yeah, it's kind of a tangy sweetness, and the texture is so much better than grocery store bread, because that's just kind of falls apart.
Yeah, now if you long ferment it, it does.
It does have a sour taste though, on the side of the.
Yeah, and there's no yeast in that, just that recipe that I gave you, so. Oh, my shredded cabbage mess. Looks like something exploded.
I just started talking to her.
take it home if you want. Otherwise, my chickens are gonna get it. You guys wanna try some of the pickles?
I tried one, but it was really good.
Oh gosh, you're just feeding us like
Yeah.
crazy here.
Lunch, right?
Yeah.
Can't have pickles. Pickles.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so there again,
You're
they're
gonna find these quite different from pickles.
they're different. They're more sour tasting.
Are they?
That's just salt and celery and mustard seeds and some garlic.
So with the
I like
cabbage,
them better.
sauerkraut, does the salt, the amount of salt quicken the process of it turning?
Yeah, it breaks it down a little
Breaks it down
faster.
quicker.
Pulls the moisture out of it so the
Oh, yeah.
whole process can start.
Doesn't taste
And
cucumber.
after that sits on the counter for a few days, you'll see little bubbles
Like
starting
fresh
to raise.
cucumber.
I can't stand store-bought pickles. I
Thank
hate
you
them.
for sharing all
You're welcome.
this. This
Those
is
are-
really interesting.
Next month we're doing pemmican.
Yeah, I'm gonna be here.
Pemmican recipes.
Oh.
What is that?
Pemmican? It's basically the first survival food ever. It's a baked mixture of dried meat, any kind of dried meat, and berries, and a little bit of fat, melted together with some salt or honey for taste, and that's it.
You had me till you said berries.
You don't do berries? It could be any kind of dried fruit. Let's put it that way.
When we visited the Buffalo Jump, Buffalo Drop, they explained that to us.
Yeah,
And I think we got a little taste of it or something.
yeah. I'll have some samples. I've got 3 different recipes I'm going to use. They figured that pemmican came across with the Indians when they came across the Bering Strait. So, and then of course the settlers, the pioneers used it. The mountain men that went to Alaska during the gold rush used it.
I now own a copy.
Perry, when he explored the Arctic Circle, used it to feed both his men and his dogs.
Now, do you think this, when they were settling the West, coming across, they brought this with them? Okay.
Yeah, the Germans brought the sauerkraut, and Columbus brought pickles with him when he came to America, and sourdough bread come across with the French trappers that, went to San Francisco and then back up to the Klondike area in Canada. So, yet when, the Europeans came in and immigrated to the United States, they brought these foods with them.
Were the different Indian tribes doing this when we came here that you know of?
Probably not that I know of. They were more dried food.
They did pemmican.
Yep, they did pemmican. That's where pemmican came in. But as far as the fermented foods, I've not found anything about the Indians using fermented.
Okay.
So
What kind of meat are you using for the pemmican?
it'll be just beef. But traditionally it would be wild game, buffalo, deer, antelope, maybe turkeys or geese, whatever they could catch probably. So any other questions?
Ground beef, or would it be like a roast? Or
Like jerky.
Jerky.
I'm just gonna chop up or cut up a beef roast, and make my own jerky, and want to get ready for that.
I know, I catch these presentations like the day after they've already happened. So I don't know where I just missed out on it or missed out. But I saw it in the paper this week, so do you do it the first Sunday of
It's
each
gonna be the
month?
16th of March,
16th
next
of
month.
March, okay.
Yep, so, you guys have any other questions?
So, was it traditional out of Germany to make the red cabbage?
I think they
Right,
probably
right.
used either one, whatever they had.
It's got like cloves, or at least modern, got cloves in it, and red vinegar and
Yeah,
other
they
things.
wouldn't have put any vinegar in it. It would have been just salted vegetables.
You won't find vinegar in German food.
The one,
Not really.
No, it would have been just fermented just like that.
First of
Probably a
all,
great big
alcoholic
crumb.
beverages don't last long enough in German culture to become vinegar.
You're probably right. Whatever beer they would have had, they would have consumed.
You know, they drink more wine,
Oh, the Germans do? Really?
and they drink something called Abbey beer, which is not beer. It is a heavy malt, yeasty, but it's more like wine, except
Doesn't
not
have the hops
sweet.
in it?
I don't know if it does or not.
I've never heard of that.
You ever find an Abbey beer, it's worth a good, but don't go nowhere.
Oh,
Don't go nowhere afterwards.
pretty high
Pretty
alcohol
heavy,
content.
pretty heavy.
No driving? No? So, Any other questions, guys? You're all gonna go home and make sauerkraut, right?
Yes, I'm gonna go scoop
It's
some
easy.
cabbage and make some.
Yes. So do.
So when my garden is, when my cabbage in my garden is mature, I'll make 3 or 4 quarts, and that'll last me a year. I just keep it in the refrigerator.
So
I've
how do
never
you know
tasted
4 to
this
6
before.
weeks? 4
That
or
is
6
wonderful.
Isn't that good?
weeks? She just
And
tells
that's real sourdough. That's nothing. That's this recipe right here.
That's not San Francisco sourdough.
No,
So at least
That
then-
is different. I
no,
love it.
that's Wyoming sourdough.
Oh, okay.
And that's the thing about sourdough yeast. Every area in the country or every area in the world will have a different taste because it's pulling the wild yeast out of the air. So every sourdough bread is going to taste a little bit different. What I make here is going to taste different than stuff you make in South Dakota or San Francisco or wherever you might be.
Well, it's so specific, that San Francisco sourdough, which is what I grew up on.
Right.
That is literally a quarter a mile of the bay. And that yeast doesn't naturally exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you cannot buy their starter.
Oh, really?
They keep it for that bread company. That's it.
That's it. So this is going to be different than what you would make, 100 miles from here.
But it's still good.
It's still good. It's still going to be sourdough.
still
It's just
good
going to
for you.
taste a little bit different.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's
Your
kinda neat.
starter takes on
Whatever
your own
wild
bacteria
yeast is in
from
the
your own
air.
environment. Yeah, that's so
Isn't that weird?
interesting. Yes.
Yep.
And it's just like honey, if you eat the
Yes.
bacteria from your own area, it's healthier for you.
Yeah, that will prevent allergies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Help your body deal with the
I
pollen in
hadn't
the
thought
air.
about that, but yeah, that's a good correlation.
Yep.
Thank you, Anita.
You're welcome. Thank you. Come to the pemmican class next.
All they want is to lose the public notice requirements so they can keep even more secrets than they're keeping now. I can't side with local governments in these fights anymore. I used to. For 20 years, I sided with them. I can't. I've got to back the legislature and I've got to back the Freedom Caucus in sort of breaking the chain and bringing local governments to heel.
And I think that that'll bring the people to heel. While I think the people deserve some, I think that people have become too accommodated to everything. And when you peel back government and local government, you're going to make the people uncomfortable too, but I think it'll make everybody stronger.
And hey, if the people can't handle it, they can vote these guys out in 2 years, right? That's the thing about the Wyoming legislature is they can neither help too much too rapidly or hurt too much too rapidly. Wyoming does have good reserve accounts.